Nava Kunjabihari.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha, Govinda Radha, Govinda.
Hey. Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Rayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Evim Sarasvatim Dhyasam Tachodayam Adirayat Nastapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, answers by citing the Lord's version. The second of the 4 seed verses of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 33 through 36. Today, verse 34. Riti, Ritam, Yat, Pratiyata, Na, Pratiyata, Chatmani, Tad, Vidyad, Atmano, Mayam, Yatabaso, Yata, Tama, Riti Ritam Yat Prat, Riti Ritam Yat Patiyeta, Na Patiyeta Chatmani, Tad Vidyad Atmano Mayam, Yata Baso Yata Tama, Riti Ritam Yat Patiyeta, Na Patiyeta Chatmani, Tad Vidyad Atmano Mayam, Yata Baso Yata Tama, Riti Ritam Yat Patiyeta, Na Patiyeta Chatmani, Tad Vidyad Atmano Mayam, Yata Baso Yata Tama,
तद्विद्यादात्मनो मायां यथा भासो यथा तमः
Riti,
Vritti
without. Artam, value. Yat, that which. Patiyeta, appears to be. Na, not. Patiyeta, appears to be. Cha, and. Atmani, in relation to me. Tat, that. Vidyat, you must know. You can make it even louder so I don't have to have it so close to me. I don't want it close to me. Because I like it over here because it's not like evasive. It's not in my face, you know. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, good. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In relation to me, taught that Vidyat, you must know. Atmana, my. Mayam, illusory energy. Yata, just as. Abhasa, the reflection. Yata, as. Tama, the darkness. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it was without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. Please repeat. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it is without relation to me, has no reality. Know it as my illusory energy. That reflection which appears to be in darkness. Purport by His Divine Grace, ISKCON's BBT founder Acharya Jagat Guru Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of the cosmic manifestation, its appearance, its sustenance, its growth, its interactions of different energies, its deterioration and its disappearance, all has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. And as such, whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, the conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. Because nothing can exist without the Lord, it should be known that the illusory energy is also an energy of the Lord. The right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relationship with the Lord is called Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relationship with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya or Maha Maya. Both the Mayas also have connection with the Lord because nothing can exist without being related to Him. As such, the wrong conception of detaching relationships from the Lord is not false, but illusory. Misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. For example, accepting a rope as a snake is illusion, but the rope is not false. The rope as it exists in the front of the illusion person is not at all false, but the acceptance is illusory. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of the reality in the darkness of ignorance. Anything that appears as apparently not being, quote, produced out of my energy, unquote, is called Maya. The conception that the living entity is formless, or that the Supreme Lord is formless, is also illusion. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 12, it was said by the Lord in the midst of the battlefield that the warrior standing in front of Arjuna himself, and even the Lord had all existed before. They were existing on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and they would all continue to be individual personalities in the future also, even after the annihilation of the present body, and even after being liberated from the bondage of material existence. In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual personalities, and the personal features of both the Lord and the living beings are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. In the material world, the light of the sun is also not independent, nor is that of the moon. The real source of light is the Rāma Jyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord. And the same light is reflected in varieties of light: the light of the sun, the light of the moon, the light of fire, or the light of electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self, the Lord, is also illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. The Vedanta Sutra, in the very beginning, affirms that everything is born from the Supreme, and thus, as explained in the previous verse, all individual living entities are born from the energy of the Supreme Living Being, the personality of Godhead. Brahma himself was born from the energy of the Lord, and all other living entities are born from the energy of the Lord through the agency of Brahma. None of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. The independence of the individual living entity is not real independence, but is just the reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, the Lord. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned souls is illusion, and this conclusion is admitted in this verse. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge become illusioned, and therefore the so-called scientists, physiologists, empiric philosophers, etc., become dazzled by the glaring reflection of the sun, moon, electricity, etc., and deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, putting forward theories and different speculations about the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of everything material. The medical practitioner may deny the existence of the soul in the physiological bodily construction of an individual person, but he cannot give life to a dead body, even though all the mechanisms of the body exist after death. The psychologist makes a serious study of the psychological conditions of the brain, as if the construction of the cerebral lump were the machine of the functioning mind, But in the dead body, the psychologist cannot bring back the function of the mind. These scientific studies of the cosmic manifestation, or the bodily construction independent of the Supreme Lord, are different reflective intellectual gymnastics only. But at the end, they're all illusion and nothing more. All such advancement of science and knowledge in the present context of material civilization is but an action of the covering influence of the illusory energy. The illusory energy has two phases of existence, namely the covering influence and the throwing influence. By the throwing influence, the illusory energy throws the living entities into the darkness of ignorance, and by the covering influence, she covers the eyes of men with a poor fund of knowledge about the existence of the Supreme Person who enlightened the supreme individual living being, Brahma. The identity of Brahma with the Supreme Lord is never claimed herein, and therefore such a foolish claim by the man with a poor fund of knowledge is another display of the illusory energy of the Lord. The Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, the divine and demoniac natures, verses 18 through 20, that demoniac persons who deny the existence of the Lord are thrown more and more into the darkness of ignorance, and thus such demoniac persons transmigrate life after life without any knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sane man, however, is enlightened in the disciplic succession from Brahmaji, who was personally instructed by the Lord, or in the disciplic succession from Arjuna, who was personally instructed by the Lord in the Bhagavad Gita. He accepts this statement of the Lord, which is the first of the 4 seed verses of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, verse 8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. The Lord is the original source of all emanations, and everything that is created, maintained, and annihilated exists by the energy of the Lord. The sane man who knows this is actually learned, and therefore he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, engaged in the transcendental, loving service of the Lord. Although the reflectory energy of the Lord displays various illusions to the eyes of persons with a poor fund of knowledge, the sane person knows clearly that the Lord can act even from far, far beyond our vision by his different energies, just as fire can diffuse heat and light from a distant place. In the medical science of the ancient sages, Jai, known as the Ayurveda, there is definite acceptance of the Lord's supremacy in the following words: Jagad Yonir Anichasya Chid Andaika Rupina Pumso Sti Prakritir Nitya Patichayeva Bhasvata. Achetan napi chaitanya yogena paramatmanaha akarod vishvam akilam anityam natakar kritim. There is one Supreme Person who is the progenitor of this cosmic manifestation and whose energy acts as prakriti, or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. By such illusory action of prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of living energy of the Lord, and the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. The ignorant person, therefore, may even be a scientist or physiologist in the drama of prakriti, while the sane person, the 4th time in the purport Prabhupada is singling out and praising the position of a sane person. So we should always strive to be sane persons, not insane persons. The sane person knows prakriti as the illusory energy of the Lord. By such a conclusion, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita, it is clear that the living entities are also a display of the Lord's superior energy, para prakriti, just as the material world is a display of the Lord's inferior energy, apara prakriti. The superior energy of the Lord cannot be as good as of the Lord, as although there is very little difference between the energy and the possessor of the energy, or the fire and the heat. Fire is possessed by heat, but heat is not fire. This simple thing is not understood by the man with a poor fund of knowledge, who falsely claims that fire and heat are the same. This energy of the fire, namely heat, is explained here as a reflection and not directly fire. Therefore, the living energy represented by the living entities is the reflection of the Lord and never the Lord himself. Being the reflection of the Lord, the existence of the living entity is dependent on the Supreme Lord, who is the original light. This material energy may be compared to darkness. As actually it is darkness, and the activities of the living entities should be understood by the context of this verse. Non-dependence of both energies of the Lord is explained as Maya or illusion. No one can make a solution of the darkness of ignorance simply by the reflection of light. Similarly, no one can come out of material existence simply by the reflected light of the common man. One has to receive the light from the original light itself. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. In the darkness, no one can see the things in a room. Therefore, a person in the dark is afraid of snakes and scorpions, although there may not be such things. But in the light of the things in the room can be clearly seen, the fear of snakes and scorpions is at once removed. Therefore, one has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and not the reflective personalities who have no touch with the Lord. No one should hear Bhagavad Gita or Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam from a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord. Such a person is already doomed, and any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. According to the Padma Purana, within the material compass, there are innumerable material universes, and all of them are full of darkness. Any living being, beginning from Brahma, there are innumerable Brahmas and innumerable universes, to the insignificant ant, are all born in darkness, and they require factual light from the Lord to see him directly, just as the sun can be seen only by the direct light of the sun. No lamp or man-made torchlight, however powerful it may be, can help one see the sun. The sun reveals itself. Therefore, the action of different energies of the Lord or the personality of God in himself can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The impersonalists say that God cannot be seen. God can be seen by the light of God and not by man-made speculations. Here, this light is specifically mentioned as vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. This direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy. And this particular energy is the means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful, direct, internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculation. Om Agyanatimirandasya Dhananjana Shalakaya Chakshumidam Nina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svaya Rupagadamayam Dadati Svapadantiyam Mandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganavatam Raghunathan Vidham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidham Sja Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surato Pangor Mama Manda Matergati Matsar Vasva Padambo Jo Radha Madana Mohana Debyad Brindaranya Kalpa Drumada Srimad Ratnagara Singha Srimad Radha Shalagovinda Devo Pistalabi Savyamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasarambi Bamsi Bhattitasti Karshan Venu Sanar Gopir Gopinatha Sriyestuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Manamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpadrubhyas Cha Kripasindubhyeva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So these are the 4 seed verses of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and understanding their great importance, Srila Prabhupada has given quite substantial purports, which will ultimately reach its zenith for these 4 seed verses in verse 36, which has perhaps one of the longest purports in the entire Bhagavatam, second only to Prahlad Maharaj's reply to Hiranyakashipu's question, what is the best thing that you've learned from your teachers, which is the second time he was asked that. So in answer the second time, hearing, chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. One who is understood and is practicing these processes of devotional service is understood to be the most learned person. So a person who is searching after the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, must certainly search for it up to this, in all circumstances, in all space and time, and both directly and indirectly. So that's, Krishna is recommending that one adopt the Paramahamsa stage of life, or come to that stage, which this verse describes so nicely. And we see the most authorized hearer of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is indeed named Parikshit, the examiner, because he was always examining everything and everyone in relationship to the most powerful Priya Darshan he had of Krishna, saving him from the Brahmastra of the evil Ashvatthama in the womb of his most saintly devotee mother, Uttara. So, yesterday, the first verse, Prabhupada took apart the Mayavadi's definition of I, and clearly, triumphantly made all to understand that I is the personality of Godhead, the Supreme Person. So here, Krishna goes on to say, in the second of the 4 verses, O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it was without relation to me, has no reality. Know it is my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness. So the wrong conception of life makes people not understand what is actually of value. Prabhupada would give the example, well, so many examples. The finger, very nice finger, but if it's detached from my hand, even though it's still a finger, it's useless because the function of the finger is to cooperate with the hand. Or was that story that the hands decided to go on a strike because, all we do is take the food and put it in the mouth. Well, why don't we take it? I said, all right, you can, but the fingers are nourished by putting it in the mouth, just as by putting food in the mouth and it goes to the stomach and all the limbs of the body are nourished effortlessly and automatically and so nicely, or by pouring water on the root of the tree. The whole tree is nourished. So simply by cooperating to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everyone is energized. So, Prabhupada begins, in the previous verse, it has already been concluded that in any stage of this cosmic manifestation, so this is always very important to keep in mind, the 6 stages: appearance, sustenance, growth, interactions, deterioration, and disappearance that affects all material bodies. So we go to Washington Square Park and we see all these young people and they're all like just so much infatuated with each other's bodies and their youth and their so-called good looks, and they're all doing all types of frivolous or what they consider cool activities that set them apart, that make them seem outstanding and noteworthy, and and they're completely heedless or clueless to how they also are going to come to the later stages of deterioration, dwindling, and disappearance, and they're making no provision. Whereas what is it in the Bhagavad Gita 15:4 and 5, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity quits his body and takes another, but one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all these things clearly. So all of these frivolous, youthful, throwing and sowing their wild oats all over the place, everything is being noted by the material nature, and it guarantees them to transmigrate in 8,400,000 species of life, because their one material desire creates another desire, and it becomes a terrible source of entanglement which has no end. All has its basic relation with the existence of the personality of Godhead. Now, amazingly, when Krishna displays his Bhoma Lila, he has a birth, he has a period where he's growing. There's the various stages of Krishna's growth described in Nectar Devotion, ultimately concluding with the Kishore stage, where Rupa Goswami says, all varieties of devotional service between the devotees and the Lord become manifest at that point. And that is the ultimate reality. And when one's spiritual body is so multivariate in relationship with relating with the Lord in accord with the Lord's unlimited and supreme topmost desire for enjoyment with his devotees. It's one of the glorifications in verse 7 of Vibha Bharisesha by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Anandavardhana Prema Niketana Phula Sada Jojaka Kama. Krishna is always increasing the ecstasy of his devotees. Whenever there is forgetfulness of this prime relation with the Lord, and whenever things are accepted as real without being related to the Lord, that conception is called a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. So to accept other grossly illusioned, embodied, conditioned souls as one's kin and friends and loved ones, outside relationship with the Lord, Forgetfulness of the prime relationship with the Lord is a product of the illusory energy of the Lord. If one accepts Krishna in a relationship, that relationship will never be broken, and one will simply go on enjoying that relationship eternally. Anandam buddhi vardhanam pradipadam bornat mitas vardhanam. Whereas the so-called relationship in the material world always ends in heartbreaking despair and painful, clueless, ignorant anguish. That's in the best case scenario, till death do us part. What to speak of bumps and hitches in the giddy up along the way, which is especially in the age of Kali Yuga, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. No, Adi Lila chapter 4, if one accepts Krishna as the supreme friend, one will be saved by making friendship with mundane wranglers. There's a little story, not kind of tangentially related, but it's nice because it's in relationship to Srila Prabhupada. So I don't remember the devotee's name, but he had a lot of friends in the advertising. And so they approached him, and they wanted to do an ad for Wrangler, not jeans, but like cowboy shirt. And what their idea was that they had a whole Harinam party of brahmacharis, every full thing, dhoti, tilak, shaved head, mridanga, cartels, and they're walking down the main street in Melbourne or Sydney, and then there's one of the devotees shaved and everything, and he's dhoti and everything, but he's wearing a Wrangler cowboy shirt, and the caption simply says, "I'm not going unless I can wear my Wrangler." You know, and they asked, him if he could do it. I'll ask my authorities, and it was just based on.
That's the picture.
They have the picture. Can I see?
I'm trying to get a better view of it. It's like a pixelated one, but that's it.
Okay.
I'm not going unless I can.
Right, and so it came down to in those days. Well, it's Maya, but how much money are we going to get? So he squeezed as much money as he could out of it. But then he was always being like, belittled and ridiculed by the brahmacharis. This is Maya, And then, but he was a very competent person, and he was made Prabhupada's driver. So there was an instance where he was driving Prabhupada, and Prabhupada just wanted to go for a ride. Wasn't like to engagement, so there was nobody in the car. So he, Prabhupada's not like going to give all directions, especially in a place where he doesn't know. So he tailor-made the drive back, that they would drive to where the biggest billboard of this sign would be, and he would park like right under it. And Prabhupada didn't know this because the devotees thought we shouldn't let Prabhupada know this. And so he parks and Prabhupada's very observant, and so the devotee goes, Srila Prabhupada, what do you think of this advertisement? Prabhupada, he's not gonna. He knows everything that's going on and everything that you're thinking, and he simply said this. Wow, the devotee who arranged this is very, very intelligent. Then he went back and said, you brahmacharis. So being freed from friendship with mundane wranglers. So we come back from the tangent. So the right conclusion of dovetailing everything in relation with the Lord is called Yoga Maya. Now this is, I really struck this, and I had to control myself from not breaking the purport to read it in entirety, but here we going back in review. Yoga Maya, or the energy of union. What's this book all about? This book is about the energy of union. You tell people that. And the wrong conception of detaching a thing from its relation with the Lord is called the Lord's Daivi Maya or Mahamaya. So both Mayas have connection with the Lord because nothing can exist without being related to the Lord. So, when Prabhupada was touring the Fisher Mansion, and the devotees were like, my goodness, how could this be a temple? You know, there was a lot of Maya in the temple, you know. And we won't describe more than just saying that. So Ambarish Prabhu, who was going to be one of the main donors, you know, so Prabhupada asked Ambarish, so Ambarish, what do you think of it? The place is, but Prabhupada, it's really Maya. And what did Prabhupada say? Well, Maya is also Krishna. Maya can be engaged in Krishna's service. And even Prabhupada confidentially said, every room is worth the price. Because people are attracted to opulence, so the path of Aishvarya, in the deity worship is very important for the neophyte and for the materialist to see the Lord worshipped in grandeur, because if they jump prematurely to understand the simple worship of the Brijabasis of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, they'll misunderstand and mistake it for their material experience. What is it? Unless they are sufficiently, unless they're guided by the pure devotee and they're sufficiently advanced, they're sure to blunder, just like the Sahajiyas in Vrindavan. Misconceiving one thing for another thing is called illusion. So this is a common example. A rope for a snake. If you're in a dark room, in a place where there's snakes, you know, India is definitely a place where there's snakes, especially in the more tropical parts, not the so much arid or desert parts. You always have to be mindful. So this would be a common example there, that a rope can look like a snake. And if you're not seeing very clearly, you'll mistake the rope for the snake. Now, it's not that the rope is illusion, but conceiving the rope for a snake, that's illusion. So it's not that the material world is false, your conception of it outside of it being utilized in the service of Krishna. There's the gross hedonists who think, you know, this place is for just enjoyment. Now, Miss Sandra Sachs, chairwoman for Mothers of Brainwashed Children. What do you have to say? You know, you're partners with Ted Patrick. Well, these Hare Krishnas, they say this world's no good, this body's no good, everything's no good. You know, God put us on this earth to have the most happiest and most enjoyable time that we could possibly have. But these Hare Krishnas are always in denial. So misconceiving this material world as a place of enjoyment, which is what, you know, the majority do, or those who pride themselves on thinking of coming to the conclusion that there's no happiness in this material world, and then we renounce and accept some type of voidism and impersonalism. They're just as foolish as somebody, you know, who's shown, you know, the Empire State Building, or what's this fanciness, the tallest building in New York. We see it by Columbus Circle, the Central Park Tower. But is it 120 stories or something? I don't know. Wikipedia, look it up. Anyway, whatever. And say, I hereby renounce the Central Park Tower. And you're just like a loafer in the street. You know, what is the meaning of your renunciation? So Prabhupada would encourage, whatever you have, engage it in the Lord's service, and that's your perfection.
They're saying it's 111 West 57th Street. It's 1,428 feet.
So that's like 140 stories.
But actually, the Empire State Building is a few feet taller if you include the tip.
Okay, all right, so that's as much as analyzation of that we'll do at this time. Misconceiving one thing for another is called illusion. Rope for a snake, rope is not, okay. Therefore, the wrong conception of accepting this material manifestation as being divorced from the energy of the Lord is illusion, but it is not false. And this illusory conception is called the reflection of reality in the darkness of ignorance. So this yoga maya, or energy of union, or Prabhupada did use the word dovetail, it'll come later. Dovetailing. So in the 6th chapter of the 1st canto, the subsequent devotees of Lord Chaitanya showed expert dexterity in this regard, and they could show everyone how to engage everything in the Lord's service. Such activities of the pure devotees, devotional service is dynamic activity. Such activities of the devotees can bring everybody into the dust-worn minds of human society into a peaceful and progressive life of spiritual advancement. So then Prabhupada goes on to point out one of the main illusory accepting something for what it actually isn't. The conception that the living entity is formless, or that the Supreme Lord is formless, is also illusion. So never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. Bhagavad Gita 2:12 is mentioned in the midst of the battlefield that the warriors standing in front of Arjuna, himself Arjuna, and even the Lord, it all existed before. And they would continue to be individual personalities in the future also, even after the annihilation of the present body. And the other example, Prabhupada would say, just as one gives up old, useless clothes and accepts another, the person wearing the clothes, needing to wear clothes, continues, but the clothes become old and worn out, and he accepts another. What is the difficulty to understand? In all circumstances, the Lord and the living entities are individual personalities, and the personal features of both the Lord and the living beings are never abolished. Only the influence of the illusory energy, the reflection of light in the darkness, can, by the mercy of the Lord, be removed. So this is very important factual point to keep in mind. The sun, the moon, electricity, they all come from the Brahma Jyoti, which is the bodily effulgence of the Lord. So how much more light, enlightenment, can one have by personally tending and serving the direct form of the Lord, not his Brahma Jyoti effulgence? The real source of light is the Brahma Jyoti, which diffuses light from the transcendental body of the Lord, and the same light is reflected in varieties of light: sun, moon, fire, electricity. So the identity of the self as being unconnected with the Supreme Self of the Lord is also illusion. And the false claim, I am the Supreme, is the last illusory snare of the same Maya, or the external energy of the Lord. So Brahma down to the ant, they're all born from the energy of the Lord. So hence, none of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. The false claim of supreme, so the independence of the individual living entity is not real independence. Or it's not complete independence. You can do whatever you want, you know. If it feels good, do it, you know. Whatever you believe, that's your religion. Dharman tu shakshad bhagavani panitam. Only the Lord can create or say what is actually religion. Just as you're the only one who can say, you know, what you like or dislike for other people to know, if they want to take that into account. If they're the enemy, they know what you don't like, and they make sure they zap it to you. Whereas if they're your friend or they're trying to be your friend, what you like, and they try to do that to you, for you. Do unto others before this is the New York golden rule. Do unto others before they have a chance to do unto you.
You said that's the New York golden rule?
Well, it's probably golden rule in other big cities like New York as well. So, just as the reflection of the real independence existing in the Supreme Being, but it is just the reflection of the Supreme Lord's complete independence. The false claim of supreme independence by the conditioned souls is illusion, and this conclusion is admitted in this verse. So, our minute independence is simply meant for one thing, to exercise that independence to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, surrendering all false, material, illusory ideas separate from that reality. So then Prabhupada goes on to point out the so-called scientists, physiologists, empiric philosophers becoming dazzled by the glaring effulgence of the sun, moon, but deny the existence of the Supreme Lord, putting forward so many theories, speculations. The medical practitioner may deny the existence of the soul, but he cannot give life to a dead body, even though all the mechanisms of the body exist after death. So it is the soul, it is the spirit that energizes matter. And the psychologist studying the brain, but he cannot make the mind work after death. These scientific studies of the cosmic manifestation or the bodily construction, independent of the Supreme Lord, are different, reflective, intellectual gymnastics only. So Prajapati Daksha offered what was already standard in the Vedic literature, the Hamsaguya prayers, and the Lord with in an eight-armed feature riding on the back of Garuda appeared to accept those prayers, said that, how is it, acting for within the core of the hearts of various philosophers, each propagating a different view. They argue and disagree amongst themselves, never coming to a right conclusion. So that is the Lord who is manifesting that. But at the end, they are all illusion and nothing more, the reflective gymnastic, intellectual gymnastics. All such advancement of science and knowledge in the present context of material civilization was an action of the covering influence of the illusory energy. So here are the two phases of the illusory energy. Who can say what they are in English?
Covering potency and throwing potency.
That's right. Which comes first?
Covering.
Throwing. First you got to be thrown before you can be covered. You're thrown into illusion and then you're covered to stay in illusion.
Which was practically
It doesn't say here.
okay, I always get those two.
Okay.
First you gotta get thrown down and then you get covered. Or you get covered and then they throw you down. I mean, it's just semantics.
It sounds like a strategy to play football, right?
It's the same thing.
By the throwing influence, the illusory energy throws the living entity into the darkness of ignorance, and by the covering influence, she covers the eyes of men with a poor fund of knowledge about the existence of the Supreme Person who enlightened the Supreme Individual Living Brahma. The identity of Brahma with the Supreme Lord, who made that mistake? His disappearance day is on the light Chaturdasi of this month. We celebrate the appearance of Lord Nrsimha Day, but also on that day it is an important disappearance day, which brings joy to the hearts of all honest men. Hiranyakashipu, he accepted Lord Brahma as supreme. And when asked for all the benedictions of immortality, Brahma, sorry, can't do that. All right, in a roundabout way, we'll think we got all the bases covered, like a nice insurance policy, Sentry alarm system and, Doberman pinchers and, and we can have everything sterilized, but death don't got no mercy and death can sneak in anywhere at any time, do its work. The identity of Brahma with the Supreme Lord is never claimed herein, and therefore such a foolish claim by the man with a poor fund of knowledge is another display of the illusory energy. The divine and demoniac chapter of Bhagavad Gita, such persons are thrown more and more into the darkness of ignorance, and they transmigrate life after life without any knowledge of the Lord. The sane man, however, is enlightened by the what? Disciplic succession. In the Prabhupada memories, one disciple is asking Prabhupada how to understand science in the Vedas. It's one of the scientists in the science program. And Prabhupada just without skipping a beat, Guru Parampara. So, enlightened in the disciplic succession from Brahma, who was impersonally instructed by the Lord. And Arjuna, who's the greatest exemplar here, Prabhupada mentions, of the disciplic succession, that Krishna is the original source of all emanations, and everything created, maintained, and annihilated exists by the energy of the Lord. The sane man, again, 4 times in the purport, the sane man, and the way Prabhupada says it says, it's very encouraging, and you feel, well, I want to be a sane man, That sounds like a good thing to be. The sane man who knows this is actually learned, and therefore he becomes a pure devotee of the Lord. When the living entity declares himself to be a non-devotee, it is understood that such person is not in a sane condition of mind. Prabhupada says in another place in the Bhagavatam. Although the reflectory energy of the Lord displays various illusions to the eyes of persons with a poor fund of knowledge, the sane person knows clearly that the Lord can act even from afar, far beyond our vision by his different energies, just as fire can diffuse heat and light from a distant place. So the Mahabhagavat, he certainly sees everything mobile and immobile, yet he doesn't just only see their forms, because he sees within everything its relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So his vision is very advanced. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santasa deva hirdayesha vilokayanti. So he sees the perverted reflections, which in this material world are most abominable, reflected opposites of the Lord's eternal rasas with his pure devotees. But because his intelligence is so clear and sharp, and he's not under the influence of the illusory energy, he actually is able to always be seeing the relationship, and he has that transcendental power to elevate the lowest and see it in the context of its highest, and ultimately bring those who are not of the most atheistic class. As Prabhupada said, most people are innocent. One Prabhupada was remarking to one of his early disciples that Krishna and my spiritual master have arranged for you to take your birth here and to come and help me. And the disciple said, but Prabhupada, how could that be? We're engaged in all abominable, sinful activity. And what did Prabhupada say? That was just circumstantial. Wow. So, like Ramananda Roy, Lord Chaitanya is praising his potency. He can turn sand into gold. And we see that Srila Prabhupada was able to do that and is still doing that, that he would always bring out the best in everyone and make everyone aspire to be at their best by his transcendental association. So everyone is born from the energy of the Supreme Living Being, from Brahma down to the end. Therefore, none of them has any existence without being dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. Oh, And Prabhupada mentions Ayurveda, the medical science of the ancient sages. There is a definite acceptance of the Lord's supremacy, and 2 verses are quoted. There is one Supreme Person who is the progenitor of this cosmic manifestation and whose energy acts as Prakriti, or the material nature, dazzling like a reflection. By such illusory action of Prakriti, even dead matter is caused to move by the cooperation of the living energy of the Lord, and the material world appears like a dramatic performance to the ignorant eyes. So Ayurveda accepts Krishna as the energizing principle, and all of its medical treatments and all diversifications are based on that fact. That's why Ayurvedic medical treatment is accepted by devotees of the Lord. The living energy represented by the living entities is the reflection of the Lord and never the Lord himself. So therefore, we never become falsely proud. We understand that everything that we can do is simply by the Lord's mercy. One devotee was remarking that Prabhupada asked to have his books read, and Prabhupada was just listening and thinking, wow, there's no false pride at all that I wrote this book. It's like if I wrote a book and like people were reading it, I'd be like, oh, yeah, ha, ha. But it's completely, and so many examples of Prabhupada showing his extreme humility. I was hearing the realization of Shauri Prabhu, that he doesn't, what came over him, but there was a Guru Puja, and, no, Artik, and he took the ghee lamp, and he was thinking in his mind that, you save the best for last, like the sweet, the dessert. So he went around to all the devotees and offered the ghee lamp, and then offered the ghee lamp to Prabhupada last. And Prabhupada wasn't thinking, nothing like that. It's very humbly. And then he didn't get it, and miraculously, some of the bigger devotees, because Sari wasn't one of the senior most devotees. Hey, what are you doing? You out of your mind? But, and then the conch shell in the water, the same thing. Put a little spring, and went to Prabhupada last, and said, what possessed me to think like that? But anyway, he's seen that Prabhupada didn't become upset or angry, And Prabhupada was describing, the 4 orders of life and 4 caste and spiritual orders, and someone like challenging person. So what class are you? The Prabhupada said, I am the 5th class because I am the servant of all the others. The reflection of sunlight in the darkness is unable to drive out the darkness, but the sunlight outside the reflection can drive out the darkness completely. So we try all these stopgap measures and try to, to figure out what to do, in any given situation. But it's just like in bringing in reflected light that is unable to drive out the darkness completely. One has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, as in the Bhagavad Gita or the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And Prabhupada was invited to a conference in Japan, which never came to fruition, but he wanted to bring with him the 20th chapter of the 10th canto, which he entitled Light of the Bhagavad, which it's actually called Description of Autumn and the Rainy Season. One has to take shelter of the light of the Lord, not those who have no touch with the Lord. For a person who does not believe in the existence of the Lord, if you hear from such a person who thinks like that is already doomed, and any association with such a doomed person makes the associator also doomed. That's nice. It's a nice way of Prabhupada expressing himself. And the sun reveals itself of its own accord. Srila Bhaktisanta tells a story that one rich person, totally full of himself, ordered his servants to make the sun appear in the sky in the middle of the night, and they couldn't do it, and they tried to reason with him. You have to wait for the sun to rise of its own accord. The sun reveals itself, therefore the action of different energies of the Lord can be realized by the light manifested by the causeless mercy of the Lord, and not by man-made speculations. Here, this light is specifically mentioned as Vidyat, which is an order by the Lord to Brahma. The direct order of the Lord is a manifestation of his internal energy, which was earlier. Lord Brahma is ordered to undergo penance and austerity. And this particular energy is the means of seeing the Lord face to face. Not only Brahma, but anyone who may be graced by the Lord to see such merciful, direct internal energy can also realize the personality of Godhead without any mental speculations. So that's our attempt to try to give due respect and description to this important second of the Chatur Shloki verses. Vatiratam ta pratiyeta na pratiyeta chatmani tad vidyad atmano mayam yabaso yata baso yata tama. O Brahma, whatever appears to be of any value, if it was without relation to me, has no reality, no, it is my illusory energy, that reflection which appears to be in darkness.